should be able to hear me now. That's not my sound system, but I'll be working on that. No big deal. I was just talking about that I was running late because I had an emergency call and that, okay, I think I got it fixed now. And I tripped over my camera on my way back here. That's why my why everything is askew. Okay, I think I figured it out. Colonel Joe Adams will bring in. It's going to jump into things. That's how we do it sometimes. On Monday mornings, things are always a little bit crazy. All right. Good morning, Colonel Joe Adams. I see you've got your Patriot wear on. That's
Mhm.
Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. You look fantastic. And I apologize for keeping you waiting. It's been quite the morning I've been having so far. I had an emergency call. And before we get too far, I want to let everybody know I will not be here Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I do have a special guest on Friday. I just got an emergency call, and so I've got a lot going on, unfortunately. Colonel Adams, how are you doing this morning, and what is on your mind?
Good morning. So, I mean, after last week, where do you start, right? I mean, it's everywhere. We're surrounded. Uh, we had a great muster on Saturday with the Washington Guard. Learned a lot of things. Of course, we're studying right now guerrilla warfare. I introduced a lot of the people to something they've never seen before. How to defeat mines and booby traps, things like that, tripwires for the coming Civil War, which will be a part of that. So they got a lot out of it. We had a really good time and had a great shooting training and practice. Everybody did real good, had a good time, had a great lunch. So come out and join us sometime. Uh,
Most definitely. And, for those who might be new to the show, Colonel Joe Adams is with the Washington Guard. If you ever want to reach out to the Washington Guard, you can do that at patriots at washingtonguard.com. Of course, we've got a lot to talk about today. I mean, there's a lot going on today. We have of course, the subject I know you'll really like to talk about, and that is the war on the cartels and the capture of El Mencho. And so we're definitely going to talk about that. I want to talk about that attempted, what I would assume would have been an attempted assassination on President Donald Trump had this person been able to successfully get through Mar-a-Lago. And I don't know which subject do you want to tackle first?
well, you might refer to it as the war on Mexico by the cartel, to the Mexican government. What is going to be interesting because there's already some conversation about America coming in and helping the Mexican government solve the problem. Aha, window of opportunity. So convenient, I don't know, accidental, who knows? But we do have one problem that I'll address. But this would be a great opportunity for us to go into Mexico and finish off the cartel in support of the Mexican government. But if this is recognized as a civil war, what's to stop the Mexican population of flooding the northern border into the United States under refugee status? And the way I'm watching this go down, they have every right to do that. So,
Well, yeah, we couldn't let that happen. I'm sure we would come up with a loophole where we would never allow that to happen because that's exactly what we're trying to prevent, right?
yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to prevent. But I don't know. I can see probably putting troops in on the our troops on the southern border with Mexican troops, and building a makeshift refugee center where they have a place to go to without crossing the border. That's probably what they're going to do. But they
I, you
will be
know,
declared refugees.
while I'm hearing rumors that this could happen, let's backtrack a little bit to what took place yesterday. Yesterday I remember just, doing my thing and working on my gardening this weekend. And then I'm starting getting all these alerts about something taking place in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And I look and I'm like, what is happening? And things were it was a really crazy day. We had obviously the United States providing intelligence, and I've heard training as well by our Navy SEALs, but at the very least, providing intelligence so that the Mexican government could go after El Mencho, who is one of the cartel leaders there in the Jalisco region. You saw things probably unfold very quickly. What happened is they went in to capture him, and of course ended up in a gun battle, as you would expect. He was injured. They were attempting to fly him into New Mexico to a hospital when he succumbed to his injuries. Now, allegedly, they then captured his son without injury, took him to an area for an interrogation, and then you see the cartel members just lose their minds, and they were, and it's so funny. I hear people defending them. Well, they were pulling people out of the car and burning the car. They told people to get out of the buses and burn the buses. They were going to gas stations. I have video. I've literally watched video of it. They were going to gas stations where people, they weren't even Americans. They were apparently Mexican citizens pumping gas. They take the gas pump out of their hand, pour the gas on them, and light them on fire. These were not National Guardsmen. These were not part of the military or Mexican police. These were just random citizens. And we saw things escalate where American citizens and other citizens of other countries were told shelter in place. That's the first warning I saw, was shelter in place. Go back to your resort. Do not leave. Do not try to find the embassy. Just go back and hold tight. Do not be out on the streets. And of course, what do Americans do? Just like when you say tornadoes coming, they all go out and want to look. I have not heard yet if any Americans were injured, or captured, but I heard that kidnappings did happen. But Colonel Adams, as you know, anytime a situation like this is unfolding, there's a lot of rumors, a lot of hearsay, and you just don't always hear, what's going on. Randy on the comment sign said says his brother lives in Puerto Vallarta. Well, I hope he's doing good, Randy. But the latest was that the cartel, they are digging out the roads so that there is no way in or out of Mexico because they don't want the tourists to escape. So I'm curious, Colonel Adams, what you have to say about Americans who are tourists right now within these tourist area of Mexico. And they're everywhere. It's Cancun, it's Playa del Carmen, it's, of course, Puerto Vallarta. It's several different tourist areas in Mexico that are under threat.
Over this last year, I've had so many people come up to me and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to go down to Puerto Vallarta, and we're going to go to Cancun." And I said, "Well, you think you're safe, huh? You ever heard of a mortar attack?" And I said, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, here's my philosophy: don't go. I mean, Mexico stays on the edge of civil war constantly, and you want to go down there to vacation? Yeah, but it's cheap. Yeah, but what's your life worth?" So and I tell them, if you go to Mexico and something happens, and you have to be extracted, don't call me because I already warned you. So that's how I view the whole situation. Don't call me.
I couldn't agree more. Friends ask me all the time, "Do you want to go down to Mexico for all these all-inclusive packages?" I'm like, no, I don't. And as a matter of fact, I have a friend who was there with her husband and children, and she got out, her destined time to come home was she got home at midnight the night before all this went down. But what a lot of people I don't think understand, Colonel Adams, is that I'm going to show you a quick video of the cartel Delta Force. Okay, this is their own Delta Force with the cartels. They are weaponized. I mean, they have rocket launchers, they have tanks, they have helicopters. They operate like a military. This is the cartel Delta Force right here. See them walking. They've got their uniforms. They've got their weapons. And I've got countless videos like this of various cartel factions that are, have full body armor. They have night vision. I mean, they are just probably more equipped than the Mexican army. How do you fight somebody like that?
Well, I was looking at their gear right there. First of all, it's very, very unprofessional. And they can call themselves Delta. I call them amateurs. So they're just a bunch of misguided children. Oh, I'm back. No, that doesn't impress me. They look like a amateur militia or whatever. Like I say, you can call yourself Delta, but that's not the Delta that I remember. So I wouldn't worry about those guys. They're carrying a mismatch of weapons. One guy's got like a 50 round drum on an AK. And
maybe these guys, but they have trucks with machine guns loaded on the back. They've got helicopters with guns. I really think based on some of the videos I've been seeing and have been seeing for a long time, that they are just as trained as the Mexican army, and certainly probably more well armed. Yesterday they killed 6 National Guardsmen and several Mexican army members were wounded at least. I don't know if any of them were killed. But how do we fight a cartel like this? Because this is just one cartel of many across the country of Mexico.
Oh, yeah, therein lies the problem. Uh, who do you start with? Anyway, if you shoot at me, I'll shoot at you. But there's still this is it's like a lot of guerrilla warfare, and of course they got drones too. So I mean,
They do have drones.
but there's nothing in Mexico that is anywhere close to what we have in the United States as far as our military, our air support.
Well, yes, us, the United States, but that lends to your point that perhaps the United States is going to have to jump in, because I don't think the Mexican government can fight the cartels, nor do I really think they want to. I really think that they're just trying to appease Donald Trump, because Trump has told Mexican President Sheinbaum, you have to do something about these cartels, or guess what? We will. I kind of feel like she went after El Mencho to kind of appease Donald Trump.
Well, send in a couple of warthogs, that'll change their mind. They have no idea what firepower is. We have there's no comparison to these guys. Now, I've worked in Central America for a long time, and with rebel units like this, I call them rebels because they don't have the discipline, they don't have the coordination, they don't have the communication systems that we do. There's no comparing what I just saw, even the Mexican governments compared to the United States. So to me, it's almost laughable. Being a former Marine, it's almost laughable. So if they want to fight, we'll give them a fight, but they're not going to last long.
Are we going to have to go in and rescue Americans?
Well, that's where they're going to make a mistake. They better, I saw the confusion in the airports down there. If they take Americans hostage, that will be a huge mistake, because that will open up the gates and we will bring it to them. That's a big mistake. Hopefully they're smart enough to know what they ought to do is protect the Americans from anybody else that might harm them. But if they take hostages, and who's to say we won't say they took hostages, or the CIA? The CIA is there. So it's very, very, it's like a walk on a tightrope, that anything can happen at any time. But if they take American hostages, we can prove it, and American people see it on TV, we got to go. And once we go, we continue to go. So that would be a mistake on their part.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, would you consider that hostages? Let's just say that right now Americans are being told to shelter in place. Now, I've heard from some people, I have some friends who live in Mexico, some that own businesses in Mexico, and I haven't heard anything this morning, but I know last night they were talking about how, most of the hotel staff had left at their resorts. They had very limited menu items. They couldn't leave their rooms. The beaches were closed. There were now I don't know anyone at these particular resorts, but some of the people told me that they were at a resort and they were forced to leave the resort, and the resort told them, hey, we're closing. You got to leave and go to the American, embassy. And of course, that's the last thing these people should do, is leave the resort and go to the embassy. I mean, we might have Americans out there taking cover, and we don't even know where they're at any longer.
Or they can just disappear. You can't blame somebody when there is no evidence and they just disappear.
And Carl's right. The Apaches shut them down pretty quick. Yeah. As of last night, right before I went to bed, I know that the Mexican army had caused the cartels to retreat, and they had taken back over in Puerto Vallarta. So as far as I know, the Mexico still has control of Puerto Vallarta. But then, of course, the cartels and other cartels were jumping in, and they were moving out further into different areas. And then again, they had all these roadblocks set up to block the roads. And of course, they took over the ports in Puerto Vallarta, you know what I'm talking about. I'm like, my brain's not forming words today. Guadalajara airport is what I'm trying to say. And, there were still some private planes going out. I watched those going out throughout most of the night. So some people are getting in and out. Of course, people who can probably afford a private plane. But now we hear that they've got heavy equipment and they're digging up the roads in and out. If they're controlling the airport, they're controlling the roadways, how do these tourists get out?
That's a good question. they didn't take my advice. Don't go to begin with. And now, if Americans are in jeopardy, Donald Trump will send the special forces in. I mean, without a doubt, they're probably gearing up right now on standby. And
I would think so.
more than once, I was put on standby in case to go in. Hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. And how many times I sat on a tarmac for 72, 48 hours waiting to go, and the mission was scrubbed. So it happens. But right now, they're getting ready and they're on standby.
Now, Paul has a question for you, Colonel Adams. He says, since this is just one of the cartels, what would happen if all of the cartels started to work together? How long would it take for them to take over completely? I feel like they already have control completely for the most part.
Yeah,
What do you think?
you could use this as an advantage. But the thinner they spread the Mexican army, the more powerful the cartel becomes, and they control the rural areas anyway. So yeah, if I was probably another cartel leader, I think I might use this as an opportunity. And they talk to each other. So let's all go. We don't know what they're talking about. We don't know what their objective is. And then other cartel could think, well, good, let them hit that cartel and spend all the resources there. It makes us stronger. See, it's a very, very complex thing.
Well, and from what I heard,
we're looking at a guerrilla warfare here. The cartel still is going to remain guerrilla warfare. They're not a conventional army.
From what I understand, as of late yesterday, the unrest had spread across most of Mexico, and that several cartels were involved. And so, to Paul's point, let's just say even more of those cartels. Now, a lot of times the cartels act up, then everything kind of quells back down and gets back to normal. We know the cartel, they fight the Mexican army and the police all the time. That's not unusual. So a lot of people are looking at this, they're saying, well, this isn't really that unusual. It's just really being more in the media, more televised than what it would normally be. But let's just say that it doesn't quell down and this continues over a period of days and we have tourists trapped there. Do you see the United States military getting involved?
Yes, I do. It's an opportunity. And I'm sure there's in the situation room, they're talking about that right now. Yeah, and have been.
I would certainly think so. And then would you? Oh, well, it would be something that would have to be discussed because it could certainly escalate. We don't know yet if any Americans were harmed, if any Americans were kidnapped. We don't have reports yet because everything was so chaotic. We had the cartels storming the hospitals and storming the airports, and people who were, as a matter of fact, I thought it was really great of the Puerto Vallarta Zoo. I did see a report on that. The zookeeper or the main person there, administrator, gave an interview and he said, when everything went down, there was a lot of tourists here in the zoo and we closed the gates and we didn't let anyone out and we won't let anyone out till we know people are safe, compared to all the other businesses that were just kicking people out, saying, all right, it's time to go, fend for yourself. And, people, we had a really strict warning to people. And I'm going to ask you about this because I learned something I did not know before. And that these people, some people who got stuck out in the middle of Puerto Vallarta and some other areas, they were taking taxis or Ubers, and the cartel was shooting at them. And I was told that the cartels hate taxis, they hate rideshare drivers, but I don't know why, and I had never heard that before. They actually were pulling passengers out. They were burning their passports, burning their clothing and their luggage, and killed the taxi driver. I had no idea. Why does the cartel hate taxi drivers? I don't understand it.
I don't know. Maybe they saw the movie. I think you're also going to find if a lot of people were stranded out away from the compound, like in Puerto Vallarta, you're going to see that. And this basically happened to me once. Local people will take Americans into their home covertly. The Mexican people in general are nice people. I remember being stranded down in Zacatecas, and a neighboring family there took myself and my race crew in and took care of us until we got our cars back on the road and take off. It's nothing wrong with the Mexican people. It's the cartels.
Correct.
The average Mexicans are nice people. They have mothers and fathers and cousins and children. No, but you'll probably see some stories surface if somebody was stranded, a family would take them in. And as
Oh, no question. I've always said that I love the people of Mexico. I really
oh
do,
yeah,
and that's why some of the deportations have been kind of hard, for me to see. But because I do love the people of Mexico. I like their culture. They're Christians. They're conservative. A lot of them are absolutely Donald Trump supporters as well. A lot of them are conservative. Even some of the people who were being deported, believe it or not, were actually conservatives and Donald Trump supporters. But Carl said that considering that many in the Mexican army and the rest of the government is already controlled by the cartels. They could own Mexico very quickly. I've always felt that to be president, like speaking of President Claudia Sheinbaum, to be president, you have to be hand in hand with the cartels because they will never allow you to become president if you're not. And I would certainly think that she's putting herself personally on the line by going after one of these new cartel leaders. They're calling these new generation cartel leaders.
well, Allison's question: what's to stop the cartels that are here in the United States retaliating? Well, that would be a mistake. And I guarantee the cartel leaders in Mexico say, no, 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 not now. We got enough problems with the American government's probably going to come in and kick our butts. And if they're in the United States, they can just, if they're smart, they wouldn't do that. The cartel's pretty much waiting on Islam. They want another group to create a problem in this country on civil war or whatever, and then they'll make their move for turf control. So it's a long range plan. The cartels are in no hurry, but they're not ready for a strike here in the United States. And if it is a cartel strike, one, it could be a fake, incursion, and two, it'd be just a terrible, terrible mistake. And so, no, that's not going to happen. If they do the right thing, it won't happen. They're waiting on Islam.
But now the cartels work hand in hand with Islam these days. I mean, we know there are, just as an example, ISIS terror cells just across the border. We know that they have trained a lot of the cartels in their tactics, and what's to say that they won't team up, and especially if we strike Iran and fight us together. I don't expect anything crazy like that to happen, but right now think about the situation we're in. We're on the verge of airstrikes against Iran. I'm convinced it's going to happen today, maybe tomorrow, but I've been saying that for 8 weeks, so who knows? And we have a ton of Iranian sleeper cells here in the United States, other terror cells. I know there's a manhunt on the right now. I'm not sure if you heard about it, and I can't recall the guy's name, but he is a Somali member of Al Shabaab, and he's here in the United States. We know he's recruiting people. He's planning a terror attack. We don't know where he's at. We're looking for him, but he is one of thousands just waiting for the call to say, hey, now's the time to attack Americans. What's to say the cartels, and these Islamic groups that want to terrorize us, that they don't all strike at the same time?
Well, the cartels are in bed with the Islamic regime when it suits them, but they'll use them like firewood. But they are waiting for an Islamic attack in the United States before they do anything. And if the truth be known, they hate them as much as we do. So, but right now they're common allies because of narcotic trafficking. They're both profiting by that. So we're in a tough situation here. It's chaos, and everything's normal, just chaos.
It is, and there's a lot of chaos that's taking place right now. While we're already on it, let's just talk about Iran, and we're going to talk about some things going on, not just the potential assassination against Trump, but we have what we've heard is that war that's going to take place on February 27th. So we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, Colonel Adams is far. We'll see how the situation plays out in Mexico. We'll see if it carries into today and how we get Americans out. So that'll leave us a lot to talk about, throughout the week. Now, as far as Iran, there's obviously, there's a lot of talk. We have, several fighter jets that scrambled to go there. What was it, 48? I heard maybe another 50 yesterday, either that or somebody was reporting the same story. We have Iran lobbing threats at us left and right, but yet Donald Trump and Iran are still saying diplomacy is possible. And I think when it comes to Donald Trump, if you look at his track record, when he says, hey, I'm going to give them 10 days, he usually strikes at the first 5. He doesn't give them the 10 days. It's just kind of a distraction maybe for them. And I've been kind of watching things plays out. Just this morning, India has told all of their citizens to immediately evacuate Iran. I think we know it's coming, but yet I've been saying that for 8 weeks now. What in the world is going on?
Well, I've been promoting it for the last 20 years, but I'm crazy.
Right.
So, right? Oh, thank you. We have to replace the regime in Iran. We have no choice because this will just continue. They've never kept an agreement. They've never kept a deal. And this is a regime whose slogan is death to America. Now, that's all I've got to hear. And the population's against them. They're killing thousands of their own people. I mean, now's the time. I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. There's a reason for it.
I'm surprised
Yeah.
too. And there's been, the uprisings in Iran had kind of quieted down now that they know and feel that an airstrike is imminent. They're back out in the streets once again. And I heard that the Ayatollah and the regime is, making contingency plans. Again, I've been hearing this stuff for 8 weeks. So, I mean, yeah, they made contingency plans like 8 weeks ago. Then we hear, oh, the troops are eating their steak and lobster. That must mean that we're heading to war. And then, of course, people who are in the services say, no, that's not true. Some bases get that, once a week. That's not unusual and it means nothing. And the Carl, he's saying, well, they have a week remaining and he thinks that Donald Trump will honor that 10-day period. But in the past, Donald Trump has not honored those 10-day periods. In the past, he has said, hey, so and so country, we're going to give you, 15 days to come to terms with what we want. And then that very day, he'll go out and hit them with some airstrikes. As a matter of fact, that's what happened with Iran the last time. So to me, those 10 days don't mean anything.
Yeah.
I think that Donald Trump knows it's just holding out for the inevitable because they are never going to agree to our terms.
Well, he gave them 10 days, but they were in negotiations, and then right away, Iran, since they had 10 days to drop, they wouldn't make a deal. So he said, why wait? So they created that.
Exactly. Why wait? And why wait this time?
And also, by waiting this time period and then hitting them, tells people he does what he says. He does what he says. He'll keep his word, but when he tells you that your time is up, your time's up. Period.
Possibly, but he's never kept his word in the past. So I will be surprised if he keeps his word this time. Usually that's like I think one of his tactics. It says, "Oh, we're going to wait 20 days," and on like day 2, he's like, "All right, that's it. We're not waiting. Let's do it today."
Yeah,
but I don't know. There's been a lot of activity, over in the Middle East. We've got a lot going on over there. It seems like airstrikes are imminent, but again, I've been saying this for 8 weeks, so I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, but Donald Trump, they know he's nobody to mess with. The Iranian regime right now they know they're in big trouble. Their time is limited, but they're going to try and hold on to what they got temporarily. But there's a lot of faith too, and Islam around the planet is watching Iran what to do. And that's more than likely to spark some terrorist attacks in this country more than the cartel, because they are a threat. They're crazy. I mean, their ideology is death to America. Period. So they're the scum of the planet. They need to go and take the Somalis with them. It's bad.
Yeah, it is. And here's something I've been thinking about is, times have changed, technology has changed, and when it comes to, let's say, Iran, just like any other country, I don't see that we have a reason to have the boots on the ground scenario like we would have done in prior wars. The technology, I think, right now supersedes boots on the ground. I mean, look what happened in Venezuela. Now, of course, Venezuela didn't put up much of a resistance, but we were able to come up with a plan. We had a very limited number of troops. I heard maybe 20 or 30 troops that went in strategically. We had sonic weapons that were used. We used our technology definitely to our advantage to incapacitate, of course, anyone who would have resisted. And we were able to get Maduro out, who, of course, knew we were coming. No question about that. I don't see that same situation playing out exactly like that in Iran. I know Patty said she heard that the Ayatollah will take himself out. I've not heard that. I know that they have plans, the regime does, to head to Moscow when things start getting tight. But at the same time, do you see any type of large-scale war taking place in Iran, or do you think that we no longer need to have those boots on the ground because we have the technology and we can carry this out with airstrikes and very targeted missions.
Well, I think the Iraqi War taught us a good lesson about you just don't go in and dismantle a regime and not have something in place to establish a government there immediately. We screwed that up. We should have. Somebody said we should have kept Saddam Hussein alive and just made him a puppet of ours because he didn't put up with that kind of stuff. I mean, he would gas you.
Correct.
Anyway, so that was.
Look what happened.
I think I think we really learned by that mistake, but eventually you have to have boots on the ground no matter what. But we have such an incredible amount of firepower, and also the best case scenario that we could have was to take Ayatollah alive, to cut him loose. Big mistake. You never cut him loose. Go in and get him. When we had to go in and get people, there was two mission statements. One, bring him out alive. Two, if you can't bring him out alive, kill him. Period. Because if he gets away, 10 years from now, here we go again. Of course, the Ayatollah was old, but he has sons. So no, that's the rule. Like with Delta Force, the rule was bring him out alive. If you can't, kill him. I'm for killing him.
And
that's just me.
Well, that's why I kind of wondered about the 10-day grace period they're getting. I'm like, are we telling them they have this 10-day grace period? We know they're not going to work with us. There's no question about that. Is that we want to get in and get them and capture them before they have the opportunity to flee? Maybe they think they'll have a little 10 days of peace and don't have to flee the country yet. I don't know. I have a hard time believing we're going to carry out and wait those 10 days, but I'm not really sure what the plan is. And like you said, of course, there always has to be some type of boots on the ground. But, but look at the old days. Look at like Normandy. Look at World War II. Look at the Iraq War. Look what happened in Afghanistan, where, we have thousands of troops. And what were we in Afghanistan? Was it Afghanistan, Iraq? We were there for, 17 years?
19 years in Afghanistan.
19 years in Afghanistan. And look what happened. In the end, we served no purpose at all. The Taliban now rules Afghanistan, and they went around door to door and killed anyone who had assisted Americans. And I don't see the need to do anything like that anymore. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't feel that we have the need to do that.
Well, the Taliban has grown in strength and logistics behind, but it's got nothing to do with Donald Trump. We never lost a soldier when Donald Trump was in office over there. No.
Correct. But I don't see the need to have a 19-year war with any country these days with the technology that we have.
I've got a nice picture on my refrigerator with Joe Biden in a towel around his head carrying an RPG round, and it's make Afghanistan strong again. So thank you, Joe Biden.
Oh.
It was all him.
I know it was a terrible situation that took place there. But we have a history of that. We went into Iraq, we left all of our weapons and all of our machinery there. We left. Of course, ISIS took it over and rose to what they are, of course, have become. And then we did the same thing in Afghanistan. But this is different. Again, I don't see any reason, whatever that takes place in Iran, for us to have it where we don't even have all of that heavy machinery even positioned, right now over in the Middle East. I don't see that type of incursion taking place. I see us in and out, get the regime out, in and out, one fell swoop, airstrikes to take out any possibility that they could potentially start building again nuclear weapons. And I think we would be done there. I mean, do you see it carrying out into anything more in the country of Iran?
Well, I think there'll be some sporadic problems afterwards, but nothing like they are now, because the Ayatollah still got. Don't forget, it's an Islamic country, so he's still got followers. Not all of them are against him. So, but you have to consider that. I mean, after the American Civil War, we still had problems, with privateers and all that. So, that's just a part of the scenario. Do the best you can, but have in place and ready somebody to come in and have a new regime in place. But who that is, I have no idea. No idea.
I don't know. I mean, look what's going on in Venezuela. Yes, we got Maduro out, but then we put that Delcy Rodriguez in, and she's not cooperating with us. And, It's kind of been at a standstill. We haven't really done much because we've got a lot of other things going on. And I don't think that plan worked out quite the way maybe we had anticipated it would work out. And of course, it's still a plan in the works. We're not quite finished yet. But these plans, they do take time. Let's say we get the Iranian regime out. The former Shah certainly thinks he's going to be the next leader. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Maybe an interim leader. I'm not sure. I think just like Venezuela, they'll probably hold some type of election and let the people choose. The problem in Iran is that there are people there who certainly support the Iranian regime, and we just don't know that we could trust who they're going to vote for. They could put somebody else in power just to replace there's always somebody waiting in the wings, of course, and the people who like the strict Sharia law are going to vote for those types of people. So I don't know how elections would work in Iran.
You got a large population over there in Iran that the regime that's in power, they're good with it because they're fine. It's the people who are tired of being answering to the Islamic
Yes.
regime. But he's got a lot of followers over there. The reason look, the
Yeah.
objective in Venezuela was one thing and one thing only: get Maduro. Okay, and mission accomplished, lost no lives, but it set an example, and they completed their mission statement. That's all. They didn't want another Iraq totally in chaos. No, that's not the objective. So, mission accomplished, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, Colonel Adams, I'm sure you heard about the story that unfolded in Palm Beach at Mar-a-Lago, where we have a 20-year-old man. Now his name was I've only seen his name a couple times, Tucker Austin Martin. Now I'm going to explain to you why I'm wondering if this is part of a bigger plan, because there's another story that's very similar to that of Tucker Austin Martin. Now Tucker Martin left his home a couple days prior. He didn't tell anyone he was leaving, 20 years old. His family reported him missing where he had gone. And what he did is he arrived at Mar-a-Lago. And if you've ever been to Palm Beach and you've seen Mar-a-Lago, it's not exactly a fortress, especially in that front area. He was able to get past that front perimeter. He had a can of gasoline, from what I understand. He entered that front perimeter, and of course, he immediately came into contact. Oh, I switched sides. Yes, sorry, I had a little disconnection there, but it looks like everything's okay now. What I was explaining is that Tucker Martin arrived at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know where I cut off. He arrived at Mar-a-Lago. I was saying that Mar-a-Lago is not exactly a fortress if you've ever been there and seen it. And so when you first arrive, there's a gate you can go through. And before the Secret Service is right there, but there's different entrances and different ways around it. I'm not going to tell where all the secret spots are. But he made his way past that first checkpoint. And then, of course, he was spotted by Secret Service. I heard there were sheriff deputies there as well. He positioned himself into a shooting position. So therefore, of course, they defended themselves by shooting back and killing him. But here he is. He has got a shotgun. He's got a can of gasoline. Donald Trump and his family were not there, thank God, at the time. And so he accomplished nothing but getting himself killed. But here's the thing, Colonel Adams, and the reason why I want to talk about this to you, I know you're good at picking up on these things. And, there was an incident just a couple of days ago on Friday. There was a 23-year-old man, and his name was Dawson Maloney. Very similar situation to Tucker Martin. Dawson Maloney also left home, 23 years old, law student in Albany, New York. He left home, did not tell his family where he was going, just like Tucker Martin, exactly like that, whose family reported him missing. Well, Dawson Maloney's family reported him missing. He contacted his family on his way out to Boulder City, Nevada, and told his mother, hey, you're going to see me on the news. I'm getting ready to do something. You're going to see me on the news. And of course, I don't know what she did or how she reacted. Well, he makes his way to Boulder City. He's got a rented vehicle. He'd stayed in a hotel one night there. He comes up to a power substation that controls, I think he probably thought it controlled the Hoover Dam, but it didn't. It controls the water flow into California. And he went flying through the gate, the secure gate, aiming his vehicle for that substation. Well, instead, he hits all of these reels power line and stops his vehicle immediately. And then he shoots and kills himself. And here's what's so weird about that, why none of this makes sense. In his vehicle, he had explosive materials. He had several weapons. He was definitely prepared to take out a few people. He accomplished absolutely nothing. But these two stories are almost identical, except for one was at Mar-a-Lago and one was in Boulder City, or in Boulder City, Nevada. And it's like, how I feel like they're connected in some way. Is there a group of people out there right now telling these young people now is your time to act out?
Probably subliminally, but no, it's not connected. You have to understand it's what's happening in America now. We get one crazy episode a week, and
True, true. But look at the similarities between these. They both had the same materials in their vehicles. Both of them were reported missing by their family. Neither one of them informed anywhere where they were going. They were pretty much the same age, young white men. I mean, maybe I'm just picking up something that's the conspiracy in me, that it seems like it's connected.
No, they just ran out of options. They wanted to do something. That's why the kid crashed through that fence out there, trying to hit I guess the power source. He'd run out of options, but he took things with him just in case he needed them. But he just ran out of options. But he had to do something because hopefully he was a trans. I mean, that seems to be the big thing now. Like you can't.
I don't think that either one of them were.
And the guy from North Carolina that went down to Mar-a-Lago. First of all, he's been missing a day and a half. No police department is going to take a missing persons report.
Same as the other guy, a day and a half.
They can call in all they want to and say, ma'am or sir, he's an adult. He's 21, and he's not until he's missing for a while. Just walk away. No, police departments do not take reports on missing persons of adults who have never run away before and have been missing a day and a half. No.
Right. Well, they may not take the report. I mean, it doesn't stop the family, of course, from saying that they're missing, reporting them missing. And of course, every police department's a little bit different. But I just think it's weird that in both of these cases, both of the families said this is very unusual behavior, for this person to just leave. And Dawson Maloney, who attended, again, he's attending law school. If you go back and look at his records, I mean, he was an honor student. He had a lot of accomplishments, and then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, he becomes radicalized. He had all of these in his hotel. They found explosive materials. He had all these books about building explosives. And then we have the same guy, I keep forgetting his name, Tucker Martin, same situation. Here he shows up at Mar-a-Lago. He's got a can of gasoline. He's got a weapon. He's got these same materials, radicalization type materials. And I can't help but feel that there's something more going on here, that maybe there's someone out there influencing these young men to take action and somehow radicalizing them. There's a lot of weird things that go on with social media and different chat groups and things like that.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. Thank you, Democrats. Simple as that. There's always been crazy. There's always been crazies, and there's going to be more crazy with this. This social media is the problem we've got. People believe this stuff, and they get I mean, you used to have to go to the Sudan to get radicalized. Well, now you can do it over your iPhone. So,
they call it short form. What is it? Short form brainwashing is a tactic that they say is used on social media, and it's very highly effective. And you log into social media and you see whatever is in your news feed. So if all of your Facebook friends, let's just use Facebook as an example, if all of your Facebook friends are radicalized, far left people, then your head's going to be filled with that material nonstop. You're not going to see the other side. You're only going to see, like, if I go on my news feed is filled with conservative materials. I don't really see a lot of that leftist stuff on my page because none of the people I'm associated with are far left. And it's short form brainwashing where you're going in, you're looking at social media, and you have all these things hitting you, and it becomes a reality to you, and you're not able to see outside of that bubble.
Yeah. In my world, when we went through resistance to interrogation, a lot of those things were used to convince us. We actually had people in the school, the SARS school, for resistant interrogation that actually started thinking towards the end that maybe I am actually a prisoner. Maybe I'm not the person I walked in, but that's how powerful this stuff is. Of course, that's before they had algorithms. So therein lies the problem. But yeah, this is a form of brainwashing. Yeah, absolutely.
It absolutely is, and I see the radicalization happening, and there's outside of there's a lawsuit right now against several social media companies, maybe all of them, who claim that their children were brainwashed, and it's part of this short form brainwashing where they feel that their children were radicalized, and not only that, but were subjected to ads for drugs and people contacting them over drugs and prostitution and all of these other things. And you would think that that wouldn't be rampant right now, but then we hear, what was that guy's name that did was it Alex Dorgan, the one that the trans guy girl that shot his ex-wife and his son, killed his son, and they said that he was a prolific user on X, the platform X, of course, what used to be Twitter, and he was on there watching porn. I'm like, I didn't even know there was porn on X. It's like, it's like I thought that they cleaned up social media from radicalization and from drugs and porn, and I guess that's just not the case. I guess it's still there if you're looking for it.
Well, the good thing about that incident, they finally put a definition to this gender dysphoria. I didn't see that coming, but it's a recognized mental illness, and it's coming from the internet, and these people don't know if they're a boy or a girl or a dog. So gender dysphoria.
And it's so we can go down that road, of course, in more length another day, but yeah, I was on a radio show, as with Vic and Eric, and when we were on, I think it was when we were on The Edge together, and one of the things that came out in St. Louis, there was a big debate over Francis Howell School District, and people were telling us these were people who were on the board at Francis Howell who specifically told us, and I've not revealed who told us, but somebody told us that there was a kitty litter box on the third floor, and that students who identified as cats were able to demand a litter box, and they were able to go upstairs and use this litter box. And I remember we'd had a lot of conversations about furries and people identifying as different animals. Now, we don't talk about it as much, but that movement is actually growing. It's not going away just because we're not talking about it. It's actually growing. And when you think about it, and I'm talking about this because a family member of mine, I'm not going to go down this road too far just in case they're listening, but a family member of mine has this dysphoria you spoke about. And for whatever reason, there's a certain animal that they think they are. And yes, I absolutely do feel that that's mental illness. If you as a human, you feel that you are a dog or a cat or a coyote or whatever animal you identify. There was a guy just the other day who was arrested. He showed up at a woman's house, and what they had planned, I don't know, but he showed up fully dressed in a wet diaper and a pacifier, was asking this mother and her daughter to change him. Now, they called the police and he was arrested. But there's a lot of mental illness in this country. I don't know if it's in the water. I don't know if it's in the dairy products. I don't know if it's in the food.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
My wife calls me an animal, but not for that reason. So okay. Okay, here's the
a lot
question.
of mental illness.
Okay. Red flag laws. Now, most people, especially gun owners, are against red flag laws. Whereas the concept of red flag laws to where a person cannot possess a weapon, how many of these cases, the weapons are legally purchased?
Right.
It's been a long time since I've heard about a stolen weapon used to kill a bunch of people. All these weapons are legally purchased. Islam's here buying legal weapons. The weapons in Australia, legally purchased. Red flag laws. So where do you start and where do you stop? Now, here's the problem with red flag laws. I believe in them, in the concept. But I think if you use red flag laws, sometime in the government or in law enforcement, they will reinterpret that law and take people's guns. And that's why the gun owners and the NRA are against red flag laws. Now, people could say, well, gender dysphoria, all these trans people are going around killing people. Maybe they shouldn't have guns. Now, wait a minute. So enforce that. So we got cat boxes in our high schools, And
Right.
now we're going to take guns away from people who think they're a cat or think they're a guy and they're actually a girl. So see,
Right. Right.
where, where, where's the stop and start at? And of
Right.
course, as soon as you go after the people with gender dysphoria on a red flag, so you can't, the trans people can't have guns. What's next? Here comes the LGBTQ alphabet people going like, oh, that's prejudice. Prejudice is because we're queer. Where do you start? Where do you stop?
Well, I'm not in favor of red flag laws. I'm not. I'm in favor of institutions, of putting people in institutions if that's where they belong. And I think that we need to bring back the institutions for those folks instead of taking away their ability to purchase guns. All of the, Colonel, as you know, and I know, every single person that I've come across who has committed some type of act, whether they're running into substations, showing up at Mar-a-Lago, going to a hockey rink and killing their family, there were always signs that they had some type of mental break taking place. Something was going on. We need a better reporting system to target these individuals. And I get it. Family members will say, well, I didn't think they would do that. I knew they'd been talking about this and talking about that, but I didn't think they'd actually do anything. And then, of course, you do have the issue where they are purchasing illegal weapons. I don't want to take away their right to purchase a weapon, but I want people to be more proactive in reporting and getting help for people who are showing signs of this, mental illness or violence.
Yeah, Allison, Carl, the rest of the guard out there. What do we call that? What do we call that? Right? Indicators. Every case I ever worked, people say, I just can't believe little Johnny. I didn't think he would rob that bank. Really? Tell me about little Johnny. And there's something there. There is nothing. Always indicators. Always.
Correct.
And
we need to do better to spot them.
That's what I teach in the guard. Indicators. It's with our situational awareness. Parents are notorious for denying their kids messed up. There lies the problem. No, I don't. Red flag laws would not work. I understand the concept. What you're saying is totally accurate. When Ronald Reagan closed all the nut houses around the country and put them on the street, that's where a lot of this homeless stuff comes from. They had a place to go. Now, those people should be mentally unstable. Red flag laws will not work in the public for the average citizens because there will be an excuse like because I think I'm a cat, I can't have a gun.
Right.
Well, yeah, but the rest of them will jump on the bandwagon. The red flag laws won't work. I understand the concept. I'm for the concept. I don't want guns in the wrong people's hands, but that's not the way to do it because the public will not go for it.
No, and we can't. I think we've got to tackle it from the other side, just because we all know what a slippery slope that is, because of course it all depends on politics, right? Who's in control, and we all know that, of course, under a conservative, or let's say under a Donald Trump or a JD Vance or an Eric Schmidt, what have you, they're certainly not going to take away the rights of conservatives just merely because you're a conservative or a MAGA supporter or whatever. But, there's going to be a time potentially when we have another Kamala Harris. Let's say a Kamala Harris takes control. Kamala Harris had every intention of promoting all these gun buyback programs. And I fully believe she was going to institute all types of gun legislation to make sure that, you can't have your weapon. And I saw that coming. I think a lot of us did. And there will be a time when that does happen. So we've got to be very careful, with those slippery slopes, that just because we might be in charge, we think that we'll keep the crazies from getting guns when the regime changes and then we become the crazies.
Well, that's called to come and take our guns from the average citizen. That's called starting a civil war. That's they would have already done it. But if you're going to come here and take my guns, that means you have to kill me. The only way you're going to take my guns is to kill me. You're going to sneak up on me and capture me. You can try, but I'm not giving my guns up, and neither is my wife. And I don't think anybody in my militia will give them out. So now we got a problem. We're going to have I mean, could you imagine the sheriff, who's a friend of mine, and the police chief's a friend of mine, sending deputies out to my house to confiscate my guns? First of all, they wouldn't do it because they know I wouldn't give them up. Now we got a problem.
Right, right. And I never saw us getting to a point under Harris where anyone was going to come to our door and take our gun. But I do think they were going to create a lot of legislation that took a lot of guns off the streets for a lot of, a lot of different reasons. And one of those, of course, I heard anyway, that was being considered is that if you were, showed signs of being an extremist, now a lot of us would fall under the extremist category simply because we may support Donald Trump or simply because I have this flag behind me on this show, we would be considered extremists. So we might be part of that group where they say, okay, you're an extremist, you can't have a weapon. I know they were going to create a lot of different legislature, but if they ever came door to door and took people's guns, that definitely would not last for very long.
Yeah.
That would not go over very well. I don't see anything like that ever happening, but you never know.
You can put me on the extremist list as far as their definition. I'm extremely patriotic to this country. If that's a crime, lock me up and I'll get out someday. Hey, nobody has used this word about Mar-a-Lago, and that word is breach. The kid breached security.
Many people have.
He got it, but think about this. He waited for a car to go out and then snuck in behind when the gate was open on that delay. Now,
Many people
how
have.
elementary is that? That means
Look
he
at
spent some time down there. And how
He
did
didn't
get
have to. He didn't have to spend any time down there to do that. If you've ever been up by Mar-a-Lago, it's not hard to do. There's been several breaches of Mar-a-Lago. In fact, if you recall, there's been at least two Chinese nationals who've made their way in.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I know you know the story. There was a Chinese national who showed up. She had a flyer that said she was there for, like, I don't know if it was a maid job or can't remember what the flyer was for. Well, she gave whoever security the flyer. They just let her in. She's wandering around Mar-a-Lago by herself. She fully walks around and does whatever she wants to do and then leaves. They didn't even realize that she had, shouldn't have been there till after she was gone. And then they found her walking down the streets of Palm Beach. But I think there's been, what, 4 or 5 people who have, if you want to use the term breach, it's not a violent breach, but people have entered. Why aren't they doing a better job watching every entrance? I don't understand.
Well, the first problem is it wasn't built. It was not built to be a security situation.
Correct.
That was a country club. Now,
Correct.
So the design's all wrong. That's his, weekend home or whatever, like Camp David. But it wasn't designed for that.
Correct.
So that's the problem. He's right in the middle of West Palm Beach. I mean, give me a break.
He's on Palm Beach Island, but if he was on West Palm Beach, it would be even crazier. Palm Beach Island is at least a little more exclusive. But there's a restaurant. I've been to Palm Beach many, many times, and there's a restaurant right by Mar-a-Lago where you can sit at this restaurant and kind of see, a lot of the happenings going on. And it wouldn't take much for somebody to be nearby and, see the happenings. It's not far from the road. You can drive past. The gate's like right there. It's not a very secure location at all. And I'm kind of surprised that they haven't done more to secure it. But of course, I'm thinking that the residents of Palm Beach probably wouldn't appreciate any construction or gates going up that are too crazy.
They're talking about just stopping all traffic on those streets. But how are they going to do that?
They couldn't. It's on a main thoroughfare. There's no way they could not stop traffic.
I would not want to live in that area, especially with all my guns.
Yeah, Palm Beach Island's not very big. A good friend of mine lives, I think, 2 doors down from Mar-a-Lago, and that's like a main thoroughfare. So there's no way they could close that road down. The people of Palm Beach would throw Trump out. They are all supporters of Trump, largely, but they would toss him out if that happens.
Yeah, I think there's been a couple of times they wanted to throw him out. Yeah, it's terrible. It's just, but the design, it was designed for a country club and for Florida living, not for a security.
Yeah, and they've got sheriff's deputies and different people out there because people will slow down and you kind of come around this bend, and you go past Mar-a-Lago. And quite honestly, if you didn't know it was there, you might pass it right by. But, you'll see people slow down and stop and they're like, nope, keep going.
I got a shirt from Mar-a-Lago. That's all I got. So I'm not going near the place. Hey, Trump's sending a hospital ship to Greenland.
But they declined it.
Huh?
He sent it there and they turned it away.
I don't think it's turned around yet.
They were like, we don't want it.
Well, but he's true. They had really limited primeval hospital
facilities.
up there
Yeah,
for medical care. It was a good move. But that was the same ship that they put in the harbor up in New York during COVID, so
that's
they could
what I
bring
heard.
people on. Yeah, but how many COVID people came on board? 50. That was
I
it.
remember that. I remember when that went down, yeah, because they had that big ship and all those resources being wasted, for no passengers. But yeah, I heard that he sent that. I haven't looked into it in great detail, but I had read that he sent it there to help the people of Greenland because obviously they do need some assistance with medical care and state of the art care. That ship is amazing. And they declined it. The government of Denmark said, nope, you're
Yeah, the
not going
king,
to do it.
the king of Denmark, who don't want to be upstaged. That's what I heard about. But I believe that Trump's just going to keep sending it, and he gets up there and say, hey, you sick people, this is what we can do for you. It won't cost you a dime. Now, who's going to turn that down?
Right.
So we'll
Right.
see. I thought that was a cute trick that Trump's doing, trying to win over Greenland or help the people already, get the people on your side.
Well,
I
that's
think,
exactly what
all
he's
right.
doing.
Hey, I got a comment on the Guthrie thing. Uh-oh. Clean teams. I told Deanna that's the kiss of death. So obviously it's in a clean team in, right? Two things. The first time I've ever seen it on the air, and of course I don't watch everything, but when I would tell my clients to any kind of DNA that's been picked up or whatever, brought to me for analysis, put it in a paper bag. Now, people were shocked. Even Deanna thought they put DNA like in a Ziploc bag. Oh no, DNA is a living thing. It needs oxygen.
Correct.
This,
Yep, always
this
goes in the
morning was
brown
the
bag.
first. This morning was the first time that was brought up, and the reason it was brought up because those search teams, those women volunteers, are coming up. But I knew the FBI and local law enforcement was not going to like that because talk about cross contamination, and because they keep searching for things. It's a nice effort, but they need to stay out of it. Now, hopefully, the sheriffs and the FBI got those people together that went out and searched and told them about that. But DNA
Yeah,
has.
well, an illegal search that took place yesterday, and I'll tell you, there haven't been a ton of new developments in the Guthrie case. I'm really kind of convinced that the sheriff is not really looking to try to find Nancy Guthrie. I'm not really sure why, but there have been no Pima County ground searches, and what happened is you probably know this. There were a group of citizens who took it upon themselves to plan a search. They did a terrible job of it. They ended up at Hobby Lobby was their plan. And Sheriff Nanos told them, you cannot search because you don't have a permit. You have to have a permit to search. Well, they searched anyway. And here's what's so crazy, Colonel Adams, I'm sure you saw this, is they were touching things. They found a backpack. Well, the searcher touched it. They moved it from its original location. It didn't match the backpack of the suspect, but still, if you're going to if you're going to conduct the search, you don't touch things, you don't move things, you leave them where they are. So this was a very badly conducted search. Thankfully, they probably didn't find anything that mattered, and they were not allowed on Nancy's property or in her neighborhood. They were just kind of scouring along the roadway. But there's a lot of citizens out there searching. We have those women you were talking about from Mexico. Now, I could be wrong, but I was told they were not allowed on Nancy's property, that maybe a neighbor gave them access to their property. Do you know specifically where they were at? I saw them with their sticks.
Let me tell you about backpacks. So I have a lot of experience with backpacks. There's an area out there just out of Tucson where there was over 100,000 backpacks. Now, all the illegals coming up here over the decades is one thing in common. They all carry backpacks. And what do they do when they get close to a city or get picked up by one of the coyotes? They dump the backpack. And talk about trash. I don't care what that subdivision is like, unless they got the Boy Scouts out there like the Border Patrol brought in to clean up the backpacks and trash. Trash is everywhere. And I told you the other day, like some of those whirlwinds and stuff get to 65 miles an hour. That stuff spreads everywhere. So just because there's a backpack laying on the ground, but you're right though, they shouldn't touch it. So in the 12 years when I was working with Border Patrol, I found probably personally over 100 people deceased. Now, did I approach that? No. Because I understand about the crime scene. So my guys were trained to draw a line in the sand, right, and write down on the palm of their hand when, what, at the time of day, and then get out of there. Keep the body in observation. So for definite reasons to show the Border Patrol and homicide where to come in, but never tamper with the crime scene. Just because you think you're doing the right thing, it could be the wrong thing, technically. So I knew that wasn't going to work. They don't want him in there. But the scary thing is it's clean team time. Wow. That usually doesn't happen for quite a while, because that means they've got nothing.
Are you talking about you must be talking about something I am not aware of. Are you saying they allow somebody to come in and clean the house?
No.
Or are you talking about the DNA, them coming in and looking for any kind of DNA they can find?
No. A clean team is a next level up team for investigation.
Okay.
People that have had nothing to, and it's a smart idea, but they never want to get to that point, and they rarely do. That's how these people find these, like I say, a wanted criminal for 15 years. They never could find. They use clean teams, one clean team after another, because a fresh set of eyes, fresh ideas, crazy people like me, clean team. But now already they've called a clean team to take over the investigation and revisit the evidence, the scenes, and all that. That's not a good sign.
Well, a lot of people want the FBI to take over.
But let me finish. So right now, the cartel in Tucson, if they didn't have anything to do with this or their people, they want to get this problem solved, because they want all those FBI agents and all those law enforcement get out of Tucson so they can go back to their business. Right now, I'm sure the cartels just staying at home watching DVDs because there's so much law enforcement out there. Now, the bad guys at this point, now they hear about a clean team. They're watching TV, they're watching the news. They know they've got nothing. They got this massive entourage of law enforcement, even south of the border, by the way. And right now, if she's alive, it'll be a miracle. The bad guys who orchestrated this, they're saying to themselves, we got to get out of here. We're done. We got to reach the distance and get out of here. This has gone on way too long. So that's where you're at. But when they announced clean team this morning and talked about these people are not skilled and shouldn't be touching anything. And if you do have DNA, don't touch it. Leave it in place. It's like a bomb. Never pick up a bomb and blow it in place. Leave it alone. Let the professionals handle it. And you're right. They touch it. It's contaminated.
Oh, no question about it. And
they're in real trouble, this investigation.
They're definitely in real trouble, but I just can't, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but I just feel like they're not doing anything that they should be doing. I think it's time for Sheriff Nanos to hand it over to the FBI, let them use their technology that they have. He's just got to let it go and say, hey, we got as far as we can go. Let's do this. They're talking about this DNA, mixed DNA. Now, sometimes mixed DNA can be a good thing. I don't know. I hear so many people saying, oh, it's mixed DNA. It's bad. Well, mixed DNA can be a very good thing. That can actually be a smoking gun in some cases, because it can tie two people together. Obviously it must not be Nancy's DNA, or they would have already been able to isolate that, but it'll take some time, but they'll take that mixed DNA and they'll separate it, and they'll say, okay, this is this individual DNA. This is a different person's DNA. They deal with mixed DNA all the time. That's not unusual. They'll get that sorted out. I don't see that as being the big roadblock that people think it is, but that doesn't mean that any of that DNA belongs to any suspect. It could be anything. Now, here's something I thought was interesting is that Nancy used the Nextdoor app. Now, we know she had used the Nextdoor app to ask about security cameras. So that pretty much notified everybody in her community that she didn't have any security cameras at that time. But she'd also had an incident where somebody had stolen a package off of her porch. So there were people out there who were aware of her home and what her name was, based on that package. We don't know what was in the package or any other information about that. She just simply posted on Nextdoor that she had a package that was missing. There's a lot of different, I will never believe, Colonel Adams, you will never convince me that this was a kidnapping. I don't believe it for 1 minute. I will never believe it. I've not believed it from day one, and until the end of this case, I won't believe it. But, nothing in this case makes sense. All the law enforcement people I talk to all say there is nothing here that makes sense. But let's think about this, Colonel Adams. What would be the purpose of removing a body from a crime scene? I know you know the answer to this.
Well, the only reason would be is kidnapping or just
Well,
plain
no,
out
that's
murder.
not the only reason. It could be it could be a reason of the body doesn't match the motive. There's a good possibility that had Nancy's body been found, there might have been. I think they killed her that night. I don't think she was alive when she left there. But if they're maybe not right there at her house, but probably after. But let's just say if they found Nancy and she had injuries, and they were able to find out who it is that did this to her, and that person's story isn't going to match, and they know they can't come up with a story as to why they did it. You hear cases all the time where bodies are burned or bodies are buried in the backyard because the husband or the wife or somebody says, oh, they fell down the stairs. Well, they probably knew that wasn't going to cut it, because really they whacked him in the back of the head with a putting iron or something. So therefore they don't have a story that matches. They've got to get rid of the body. So the only things I can come up with why her body was moved would be, like you said, a true kidnapping. I'll never believe this is a kidnapping, or that the injuries to her wouldn't match the motive, or wouldn't match the motive given by the person or the story given by whoever did this to her. Or as we know, criminals don't think rationally. We're trying to make a rational argument, maybe from somebody who doesn't think rationally. And those are the only three things I can come up with.
Well, until we know what the evidence was inside the house, we can't make that clear.
Well,
I mean,
we know there was blood inside the house, and that is the only thing we know. We don't know anything else.
yeah, but we don't know if they searched the house, tampered the house, got her to open the safe. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know those things. That's why the police chief out there, or the sheriff's saying he considers it a kidnapping.
But he's also kind of an idiot, in my opinion. I don't. Sorry to
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
but I think that it's politically driven, some of their statements. I think that they're trying to coddle and protect the family for some reason. Think about this also. Look at Nancy's daughter Annie. Now we know that investigators focused on their home. They were, logically speaking, they were the last people to see Nancy alive. And so therefore, of course, they're going to be the first people that are looked at. But the investigation went beyond the typical investigation. They went into the home. They used luminol. They actually used a different material. It's like luminol, but it's a newer, better material. And they went in and they took their photos. But here's what the thing is now the sheriff's department says that all of Annie's children and their spouses are cleared. He used the word cleared. I think he's lying. And because you know what? They took Annie's vehicle and they marked it as evidence. If she's cleared, they would have released that vehicle back to her. And so I don't know why they continue to keep her vehicle. Her vehicle was logged as evidence. They found something in her vehicle that has allowed them to keep her vehicle despite saying she's cleared. I just think there's more to that story.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
And I'm not saying that her daughter and son-in-law are guilty of harming her. I just think there's more to the story.
It goes back that it doesn't take that long of a time to get a 84-year-old woman out the front door. That's the only thing that bothers me. What took so long? Did they hurt her and they were trying to get the books up? I don't know. Who knows? They won't know we won't know till they tell us. But hey, Jay. Yeah, you're right. James commented, guess that inept guy on camera isn't as inept as we thought he was. You're talking about the black guy? He's the one that was talking about putting DNA in a paper bag. No, he's inept.
Oh, I think Jay's talking about maybe the suspect, where let's say Jay says, guess this inept guy on camera isn't as inept as we thought, or there is someone in charge who is extremely sophisticated. I don't think any of those things, Jay. I'm not saying the guy if you're talking about the suspect, I don't think necessarily the suspect is inept.
No.
I mean, there's a very good possibility. There's a lot of crimes committed by really dumb people and they get away with that crime forever. Look at all the cold cases out there that were committed by really stupid people, but those people have gotten away with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you have to enter in the luck factor. Any detective will tell you that they just got lucky. So we won't know. No, I think Jay was talking about there was an investigator, a black investigator on the last couple of days talking about the people coming up and volunteering, and that was a mistake and all that kind of stuff. But he's the one that mentioned the DNA. Always put it in a paper bag. First of all, don't touch it. But I've had people bring me things as an investigator, and I would use my private. There's a private lab. Actually, it was Lab and Labity. It kind of rhymes. I never thought of that before. So the State Patrol's crime lab used to be in Labity when I was a detective. So people would bring me like pieces of clothing, suspicious garments that were found in the guy's car, things like that to check for DNA and that kind of stuff.
Oh, no, no question. Now, here's another twist, in my opinion, Colonel Adams, is, the reward has grown to $200,000, actually $202,500. But yet you do not hear this anywhere. Usually when there's a reward of that magnitude, they're posting about it, they're talking about it. I haven't heard a single word about it. The family has not contributed to the reward at all. The family is not out posting, where's my mom? Where's my mom? Somebody please release my mom. We're hearing nothing from the family. There's no vigils. There's no pleading. The family has not been to the home. They're kind of just taking the back burner and not doing anything. I don't understand why they haven't added to the reward. I know there's reasons why. You obviously don't want to reward somebody that's committed a crime, or I don't know. What's your take on that?
That's just FBI and law enforcement. They have to control the case. If that was if they thought that was helpful, then they would
Yes.
have the authority to do that for the family or the family itself. They got to control the evidence. They got to control the case. And being the Guthries, and especially Savannah, who's been around the media and police in cases like this before, they're cooperate with FBI. It's pretty hard not to cooperate with the FBI when they're sitting in your living room saying, "Look, this is what's going to happen." But I'm glad you brought that up about the element of luck. So, how many cases I told you on a previous episode on your show that one time myself and another detective completed the case, and it was thin, and things just worked out. And I said to Bill, we got lucky on this one, and he says I take full credit for luck and bill accordingly. So there is always that luck element.
Oh, well, of course, no question about it. There's always something. And when I watch the suspect video in this Nancy Guthrie case, yes, the guy has a mask on. Yes, he's got a backpack. But if you look at the videos from neighbors, there's a lot of neighbors. It's a high crime area. I talked about this last week. It is a very high crime area. There's 2,300 homeless people in the city of Tucson. They had a big homeless camp where there was a couple hundred homeless folks living in this camp. And about 3 months ago, they tore the camp down. And so these people scattered around. There was a guy who's kind of one of those on the ground reporters. He walked behind Nancy's home and was kind of just looking around. Well, he came across, guess what? A homeless camp. He walked a little farther. Guess what? Another homeless camp. And, and I really wish wherever they were, I hope they go back and search again, because, this guy is not experienced. He's not a searcher. He went to a certain area, and I'm not going to be graphic by this, but he said there was a very bad smell, but he didn't see anything. And if and I'm going to be very careful what I say. I don't want to upset anyone or go down a road I shouldn't go down. But let's just say investigators have given every indication that whoever took Nancy was on foot. So if that's the case, and they took Nancy nearby, people have said, well, if they were to bury her in a shallow grave, even though you may not see that it's a desert, things move around, you might not see the ground disturbed quite as much as you might expect, but you would still have, some expectation of a smell. And again, I hate these things, and I hate to be graphic, but I do hope they circle back around to that area and look again.
Let me comment on that. Again, I'm an expert on that. You can't bury a body in a shallow grave in the desert.
Right, because you mean the animal activity.
Yep. And here's another thing, too. I'll give you a little clue. When we would find a partial body, it's always next to a wash in the dry season, because what they'll do, they'll bury a body in the wash because it's all sand. And eventually the coyotes find them and will drag the body to higher ground because the coyote knows that's a wash. it fills up with water.
Right.
So when I went out there for the what's that newspaper? The what is that? The online newspaper in St. Louis. I can't think of the name of it now. The two brothers own.
The Riverfront Times, maybe? I don't
They're
know.
gone. Anyway, they had sent a journalist out with me to do some work and film the cartel and all that kind of stuff. So we're watching, and I spot something down in the bushes at Gate. Okay, thank you. My producer says Gateway Pundit. So Gateway Pundit sent this guy out there with me. And as we were glassing an area from the top of a mountain, I sent one of my guys down there to walk back. We were looking for cartel caravans. And sure enough, it was a body, a dead body. And the smell is a smell you'll never forget. I mean,
No,
it's
I've
watched.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
I watched Border Patrol, new Border Patrol guy. I found a girl we called Jane Doe May 15, and she'd been dead for a couple of weeks, and her body had already exploded and blown up. You don't want to smell that, and so you stay upwind of that. So Border Patrol shows up and goes up, approaches that body, and starts throwing up. And I said, and the other Border Patrol agents are making fun of him. Well, that's a definite smell. But no, you can bury them very deep, but there'll be no shallow grave very long because the animals will dig it up.
No, here, speaking to your comment about animal activity, I don't know if it was 2 days or 3 days after Nancy disappeared, one of her neighbors made a recording, and they said that for that area, it was very unusual. It wasn't normal. And some of the people out there, if you're following the case, you might know what I'm talking about. And it was the sound of coyotes in the distance who were very, very loud, much louder than what they would normally be. And the neighbor had said that they hear coyotes. Of course, they know they're there, but they've never heard them act like this. And if you hear it, it's crazy. They're just going nuts. And a lot of people had wondered, like, is it because something is unusual is happening? Is it they know something? Did they find something? And there's been no searches in any of those areas. Not one single search in those areas. The Pima County has done no ground searches looking for Nancy.
Yeah, the other problem is
now they've used that little sniffer thing for the pacemaker, but that's an iffy process.
Yeah, they would have had cadaver dogs there already, probably day one.
Not up in the mountains. They haven't.
The problem with the mountains is this area where the homes are at the basin or at the foot of a mountain. Oh, ask Beverly Hills. I was in Beverly Hills, California. And I'm downtown Beverly Hills, standing outside smoking my cigar, and I see a dog coming down the other side of the street. It was a coyote in the middle of Beverly Hills, because the animals stay up in the hills because they feel they're safe. Then they come down to look for fresh game.
Right. Well, and Jay says, right. Well, Jay says that of. Here's the thing, Jay. If you follow the Nancy Guthrie case, you'll know that there's about 100 journalists that watch every single move of the police department. They follow them everywhere they go. And so those people know that they have not done any ground searches because they know every single thing the FBI does. I think that's wrong. They shouldn't know. They shouldn't be camped out in front of Nancy's house at any given time. But it's a strange case. There's no answers. I don't feel that they're doing enough. Of course, this is only my opinion. There's certainly things that Pima County and the FBI know that we certainly don't know, and that probably lead them in a certain direction. But at the same time, you have the FBI and you have a lot of local law enforcement, not Tucson, but the perimeter of Tucson, other people in Arizona who say this sheriff has an ego problem. And he has done this before. He doesn't want to work with the FBI. He doesn't want to give up the case. But yet they're running in circles. They have no leads. It's going to be a cold case. And they claim they don't have any information, that they're, that they really have nothing that points to a kidnapper. And I don't know one single person in law enforcement, seriously, not even one. And trust me, I talk to a lot of people who thinks this is a kidnapping. And it really is, they don't have anything to go on, and of course they know things we don't know, but I still don't think they have anything to go on. And they need to hand it over to the FBI. They need a fresh set of eyes. They need to just give up that control. I know it's not easy, but I don't think that we're going to have any answers anytime soon until they do.
Well, the FBI has the ability to be the greatest law enforcement investigators in the world, right up there with Interpol, which Interpol is a lot of FBI agents. So I still have faith in the FBI, but this is a very, very strange case. And when it's over,
It
when
is.
it's over and done with, they'll look back and say, you know something, that did do it that way. That little piece of evidence should have sent them in a different direction. But again, they're human beings. But this is what they do professionally. The FBI are really, really great investigators. And I've worked with them on several times in several cases. Uh, you know,
But people, investigators miss things, Colonel Adams. Look at the Delphi. I don't know if you're familiar with the Delphi case. Delphi, Indiana, there were two teenagers who were horrifically murdered, found in a park-like area. And this investigation went on for many, many years. They had a video of the suspect, they had an audio recording of the suspect. Investigators, seemed content that it was somebody in the community. They couldn't figure out who. This was, I think, what, in 2012, 2013. Well, then 2000, I think it was 17. Guess what? They had a fresh set of eyes look at the case. They went back through the tips. They found out that, like the same week, or, of the investigation, the same week the girls got murdered, they spoke to a man who was there that day hiking. He had on the exact same outfit as the guy that was on this bridge. He told investigators he was on the bridge, but he didn't see these two girls. Well, that tip got buried. And then a fresh set of eyes came out and they looked at that tip and they said, gee whiz, here's a guy who was wearing similar clothing. He knows that he was the person on the bridge that was in the video and in the photos, but we never looked at him, because he said he didn't see the girls. We just buried that tip. Turns out he was the killer. He has now, of course, since had a trial and been prosecuted and is in prison. But here they had the tip the entire time. A guy who placed himself at the scene, that placed himself on that video, yet still their minds were just closed to it.
You'll get that. I remember that case, and I remember talking about that case. But I studied the JonBenet Ramsey case and tried to convince. When I say certain things, the people who don't know me or my background they think I'm strictly an old Marine. No, I was the best private investigator, rated #1 in the world. I went the day after JonBenet Ramsey came up missing. I went to a group of people in St. Louis and I said, hey, y'all want to be armchair detectives? Pay me, and I'm going to go to Colorado because I can solve that case. Now, I know people listening around going like, oh, that guy, oh, really? Told you before, my kill ratio was thousands to one. I lost 2 cases in 26 years. I solved all the rest of them. The FBI stalemated on that kidnapping in out there in West County for 6 months. No leads, right? I got the kidnapped kid back in 10 days. So if you knew who I was and what I was capable of doing, you'd believe me. I wish I had this case. It's interesting as hell. But all of them.
And we might have some answers on that JonBenet case soon. They've sent her, some what they thought is suspect DNA in for genetic genealogy testing.
Well, it should have been solved a long time ago.
Sure should have.
Sometimes the biggest clue is right in front of them and you didn't see it. Or you didn't.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I just had a real bizarre feeling of I have nothing to do with that JonBenet Ramsey case. The day after it came out in the news, I went the next day. For some reason, I wanted to go work it, but I could not get finances to do it.
Yeah, well, that case, like 90% of other cases, is an internal job, is the words I'll like to use. And I think Nancy Guthrie's case is as well. I think whatever happened to her, if it's not just a burglary gone wrong, I think it's somebody that she knows, somebody in her inner circle. And, people know other people, and it wouldn't be hard to say, hey, I've got this situation going on. I'll pay you X, she's worth a lot of money. I'll pay you X amount of dollars if you go and take care of this situation. There's a lot of things that can happen.
I would love to have this case from day one. I don't think we'd be having this conversation right now. Now I'm saying, oh, I'm better than the FBI. I'm better. Well, no, my track record says, yeah, maybe I am or was. I'm not the same guy I was 20 years ago. Hey, I got to take off. My dog.
Yes, me
Hey,
also.
talk of real quick. Last Friday, Holman gets on TV and said what I said a long time ago, that statistically it's going to take several generations to remove all the illegals from this country. He finally said it. Newsom, I looked into that. Newsom spent last year $20 billion on illegals, state of California, tax money. Because, and that's what, listen to this. Do you know that
That's a small amount compared to what I thought it would be.
74 cents of the tax on gas, every 74 cents out of the price of gas goes to state tax. That's insane. And they wonder, and he's run for president. Yeah, that's just what we need. Anyways, sanctuary cities are direct counter to our immigration laws, and they should not be supporting that, and they should be tried for treason. Oh, here's the best one. These guys, these sanctuary cities, totally illegal. But a politician from Minnesota, I mean, poor Minnesota. I mean, people moving there are not going to move there. A trans politician in Minnesota over the weekend says, and this is a guy who's now a girl, I forget, I was too busy laughing, says that children, gay children, should be allowed to watch porn so they can understand who they are. Now, that's a quote. And this guy, this thing is elected politician. Is that the most insane thing you've ever seen?
And in Minneapolis, they'll probably elect them again.
Right. Hey guys, I'll see you next Monday unless something gets real crazy. I'll help you on Friday tab if you want me to. My dog's got to go outside. Thanks, guys.
All right,
the Washington Guard.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, Allison. Thanks, Jay. And thanks, Patty. And see y'all next Monday. And love y'all. And remember that. Gay children watching porn. Rad. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Adams. That's Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. You can reach out to Colonel Joe Adams at patriots@thewashingtonguard.com. They do have a newsletter you can sign up for. And I just want to really throw one more thing in before we take off. And Carl says, nothing on the third carrier group. I have nothing for you, Carl, when it comes to that. One last thing I want to throw in before I head out, and I'll talk a little bit about what my week is going to be like, because I won't be back until Friday, but I do have a very special guest on Friday for you all, who I think you will thoroughly enjoy. And I'll tell you, I wanted to throw in about Anonymous, just because I saw this come across the news last night, or I should say my type of news. I don't watch network news. But Anonymous had made a statement that they have, I think it was like 3,900 files they had found in the system. They hacked into I don't know what system they hacked into, but they hacked into some kind of system. And they found 3,900 files that had some type of misdirect or, coding error. And they said they're going to recode these files and that they have video, that they're going to release these files unredacted, including the video that goes with these files. So that could be kind of interesting to see play out. We'll see, of course, if they release that, if they truly have that information. It could be an empty promise. We'll never know. But one thing I want to throw out is I have a very busy week. I will not be here until Friday. As I said, I had an emergency call this morning. I will not be here Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, or Thursday morning. Unfortunately, duty calls and work has to come first. The show, as you know, is just my hobby. I don't get paid to do it, just a hobby. And so therefore I have no choice. If work calls, I got to go. And the person who usually fills in for me, if I need somebody to, is not available this week. So I will not be here. Of course, I will be on the internet. I will be keeping everybody up to date like I do. People probably wonder how I possibly post so much and get anything else done, but I want to keep everybody at the top and make sure everybody knows what's going on in the world. So I will not be here, but I will be here on Friday. I am going to have a special guest, and when I can, I'm going to announce who that special guest is and give you some information at that time. So be sure to tune in on Friday. You don't want to miss it. I promise you that. And I will look forward to seeing you all then. Carl says, we probably don't want to see any videos. You're probably right, Carl. I would probably never get past those videos if I saw them. But I hope you guys all have a good week. I will see you all on Friday. Have a happy Monday. Stay warm. I heard with the wind chill, it's either at 0 or below 0. So that's a little bit of a crazy weather this morning. Have a